Game of Thrones has ended, and the internet has opinions. Lots and lots of opinions. To help celebrate this momentous occasion, I want to talk about another fantasy series that fans believe started out stronger than it ended. I'm talking about Golden Axe, the popular fantasy beat-em-up from Sega that had a killer first installment, followed by 2 awful sequels. We've already looked at the endings for both the arcade and the Genesis version of the original, so now it's time to set our sights at those awful sequels. Turn back now if you don't want to know what happens next, because today we're going to spoil the stories and endings for both Golden Axe 2 and 3 on the Sega Genesis. This is Game Over, the early years. If you watched our episode looking at the original Golden Axe, then you already know that the different versions had radically different endings. In the arcade, Death Adder and his gang jumped out of the cabinet and terrorized the real world, setting up what could have been Streets of Rage with Golden Axe characters. Sadly, the 2 sequels chose to follow the Genesis ending, which was more in line with the usual fantasy tropes. We saved the day, everybody's safe, good job, game over. Well, that brings us to Dark Gold, an ancient evil warlord with a badass nickname of Lord of Darkness. You see, he was defeated in battle centuries ago, but it didn't stick. Now he's back from the dead, and he's taken the legendary Golden Axe in an effort to plunge the world into chaos. He doesn't really have much of a motive outside of being an evil dude who wants revenge on being killed, but you know what? On second thought, if I was killed and came back to life, I suspect I too would be pretty pissed off, so maybe that's a pretty good motive. Standing in Dark Gold's way are the 3 warriors from the first game: Axe Battler, Tyrus Flare, and Gilius Thunderhead. You would think that maybe a few more brave fighters would step up, but I guess everybody figured that since these guys got the job done the first time with Death Adder, we'll just let them carry the weight going forward. With no other options, the trio sets out on what the instruction manual calls a long journey, but in truth is little more than a breezy 30-minute long bike trail. So there's not a lot of story in Golden Axe 2, so we're just gonna speed through a lot of this. Our heroes pick up the fight in Turtle Village, which has been overrun by Dark Gold's army. This is where we realize that not a lot has changed since Golden Axe 1. The mounts and enemies may have changed, but it's the same old action. We hack and slash until we get to the ancient ruins in the mountains, where we're met by a gang of skeletons and this headless knight. This confirms that Gold is using the ruins as a base, which gives us an idea where his headquarters is. This takes us through the Dragon's Throat caves and up to the castle gates, where we meet up with 2 headless knights. Yeah, this game is lousy with headless knights. And trust me, we haven't even seen the last of them, because the golden version shows up at the end of the castle. We kick his ass and confront Dark Gold, who's locked away in a shiny room full of pillars and artwork. Just look at this thing, it's pristine, it doesn't look like it's ever even been touched. Not a mark anywhere. Well, our heroes change that and defeat the surprisingly easy Dark Gold once and for all. Here's what happens next. Golden Axe 3 takes place many years after the defeat of Dark Gold. Axe Battler and Tyrus Flare have sadly passed away, and Gilius Thunderhead is the last person left to tell the stories of the Axe Wars. Now old and unable to fight, Gilius sets out on his final mission to sail to the edge of the earth and return the Golden Axe to the gods. But before he can complete his mission, a huge storm knocks out the aging dwarf and washes away the axe. To make matters worse, an evil giant named Damud Hellstrike captures the axe and decides to use it to conquer the world and puts a curse on everybody that stands in his way. As luck would have it, Gilius is able to break the curse, allowing 4 new characters to go on an epic journey to defeat Hellstrike, the Prince of Darkness, and bring back the Golden Axe. The new heroes include Cain Grinder, a soldier with a battle sword, Sara Byrne, a speedy fighter who used to perform as an acrobat, Proud Krager, a former Damude prisoner with a hunger for revenge, and Cronus Evil Late, a humanoid panther created by black magic. Now, much like the first 2 games, there isn't a whole lot of story outside of the setup. This is a series of going from point A to point B and hacking and slashing as many fantasy bad guys as you can. This starts in the middle of a sandy desert where there's nothing but enemies and gnomes on all sides. Yeah, this place sucks, so we catch a ride to Tender Hamlet via this unmanned carriage. Inside the town, we fight a couple of guards and save the captured citizens. We see a lot of these guards and prisoners, so instead of me showing all of them over and over again, just assume they're in every level. Now, the big gimmick in Golden Axe 3 is that you can choose which path you want to take. In this case, we've decided to take the southern path, which pits us up against one of the 3 brainwashed heroes we didn't choose. We have to hack and slash him to break that curse, which you'll need to repeat 3 more times before the game is over. Proud Krager thanks you for freeing him, and it's off to the Cave of Crystals, which is exactly what it sounds like. On the other side of the cave is a city with the ominous title of Bloody Streets. I'm not seeing any blood, but there's a big fight with the cursed Sara Byrne. We free her from the curse and learn that the next destination is Death Mountain. This is the only way to get to the cursed city, but first we need to fight against the single hardest enemy in the entire game. It's this winged creature who just won't die. I'm telling you, this thing is the worst. So, an hour later, we finally make our way to the cursed city, which is where we run into these paintings that magically come to life. We also run into Cronus Evil Late, the final cursed hero in need of a butt kicking. We free him, and he points to the Gate of Fate, which is where that winged creature is waiting and hoping for a rematch. He's a lot easier this time around and morphs back into the king after you defeat him. He tells you to go inside and defeat the Prince of Darkness. It's here where we go through the usual trials and tribulations, including defeating most of the bosses all over again. There's a linear path that takes us straight to Damude Hellstrike, who has been waiting for our heroes to show up and try to take that golden axe. We win, but it's not a very satisfying victory. Here's what happens when you get the bad ending. Now, if you're able to defeat the boss twice under the right conditions, you'll find this much better ending. Here is what happens next. It's not that these endings are bad, but rather that they're just not memorable in any way. And it's not just the endings, but also the games in general. Golden Axe had a cool opportunity to twist things up by setting the sequel in the real world, but instead we get a bunch of fantasy levels that all look the same. The best thing about this series are the names like Dammud Hellstrike, Death Adder, and Dark Gould. Admit it, these are badass names, but the villains just don't do anything really that interesting. They were all after the same thing and just didn't attempt anything original or creative. This is a series that didn't just run out of juice, but had no original ideas after the first installment. Instead of focusing on these repetitive sequels, I wish that Sega would have focused on telling us the story of how Gilius Thunderhead ended up in the ending of Alien Storm. Now that's a game I want to play. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Game Over, the early years. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes every Monday. Now here's the question I have for you. Should Sega resurrect Golden Axe? They tried to reboot the series back on the Xbox 360 and it didn't go so well. Should they try it again? Or have games like Dragon's Crown done the work for them? Let me hear your thoughts in the comments below. This is going to be a bit of a truncated week, but don't worry. When everybody else is off next week for Memorial Day, we're going to flood you with new reviews and features. Big stuff is on the way. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.